Hello guys, Oscar Hotel 8 Sierra Tango November Julian here for Off Grid Ham Radio. Today we're testing another antenna from Tim, November 9 Sierra Alpha Bravo. This time it's an 80-meter linked end-fed half-wave antenna that should be a real hit for those of you who like NVIS communications. So we're going to set it up, we're going to measure it, we're going to test it against our baseline with FT8, and then we're going to show you the results. Stick with me, and I'll tell you all about it. All right, guys, let's go.
You are listening to the Emergency Broadcast Systems. This station broadcasts emergency news and official information on the air for assigned area.
Before we get started, there's a couple of things to point out. There's a few good reasons why we want to test our antennas against our baseline. First of all, it's a no-brainer. We want to know what our antenna can do and what type of performance we can get out of it with a certain amount of power from a radio. If you're using 100 watts through your antenna, that doesn't tell you whether or not the antenna is good or not because, you're pumping a massive amount of power through it. But if you can test it with 1 watt versus your 100 watt baseline, this gives you an idea of what you can do with the antenna in less than optimal conditions. So we're going to test it with 1 watt and take it from there. So let's take a look at the antenna itself. Naturally, it includes the transformer and its housing. The transformer already includes the 20-meter element, but as a linked dipole, there's also a 40-meter and 80-meter elements. You don't need to remove the 20-meter element, you just add the 40-meter element and then the 80-meter element for the particular band you want to operate on. This prevents you from having to fumble around with a mess of wires trying to get your antenna in the air. The antenna basically weighs nothing, making it a great option for those with weight or size restrictions. Here's the setup that we have today for the FT8 portion of the test. We might do some Winlink also, let's see. There's some clouds rolling in, so I'm not sure how long until or if the rain will actually come. But I've got my Microsoft Surface Go, and I've got the Lab599 TX-500 mic Papa with the LiNK500MP MK2 from Delta Lima 4 Kilo Alpha. I've got let me turn it around this way. I've got the carbon fiber mast from GigaParts. Let's roll it up. And on the top you can see the 80-meter linked end-fed half-wave antenna from November 9 Sierra Alpha Bravo. Now before doing anything else, we're going to take the Stick Pro from RigExpert, plug in the antenna, and we're going to do some measurements. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here because the rain and storm did finally make it to me shortly after that last clip. Thankfully, I was able to get some results from PSK Reporter, but unfortunately, during that time of day and the way my antenna was oriented, I was able to get into the Arctic and out across eastern Russia, which isn't actually surprising. After a few days of rain and gray skies, it was time to get back out in the field to finish the test. So day 2 of my testing was much more exciting. Naturally, I continued the FT8 testing, but this time in a little bit different configuration. It was more horizontal than it was sloping. It was also a little bit lower so that I could take advantage of NVIS later on in the day. Now, just as a practical note, when we're operating in an NVIS configuration, naturally, that'll have an effect on the higher bands. The optimized physical height we have for NVIS on 40 meters means that the antenna on 20, 15, and 10 meters are operating at less than ideal electrical height. This is also true when we add the 80-meter link to our end-fed half-wave antenna. To prevent having to redeploy the antenna every time I want to change between 80, 60, and 40 meters NVIS, I'll take the performance hit along with the ground losses, deploying the antenna at a height optimized for 60 or 40 meters and using that configuration for 80 meters, 60 meters, and 40 meters. You'll still get a performance hit with NVIS, but you'll spend less time redeploying the antenna. Now, in this first part of the test, I was still covering Europe, but this time I got down into Spain and the Azores, as well as the Arctic and Russia. During the next session, I noticed that my reception was exceptionally good this time around. I was also able to make my way into Iceland and Newfoundland. So, with the antenna in a horizontal configuration with the broadsides pointing north and south, my horizontally deployed wire with 1 watt netted me Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, England, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Northern Ireland, Poland, Portugal, Sweden, Wales, and Asiatic Russia. Again, with 1 watt. To be 100% fair to Tim, I'm absolutely certain if I had this antenna in an inverted V configuration with the apex at a quarter wavelength above ground, performance would have been even better. Still, I think that's quite incredible for an antenna that's set up basically for NVIS on 40 meters, doing such a wonderful job on 20. But let's go ahead and take a look at the antenna measurements we got with the RigExpert Stick Pro. Just a quick reminder that I don't have the 80 meter element on this antenna yet. We'll do that in another video, a dedicated video for 80 and 40 meters NVIS. So again, the measurements were taken with the RigExpert Stick Pro, and it said 40 meters, excellent. So for 40 meters, we had 1.4 to 1 at 7 megahertz. SWR stayed between 1.4 to 1 and 1.7 to 1 between 7 and 7.2 megahertz. On 20 meters, the RigExpert Stick Pro said the antenna performance was good. Keeping in mind the antenna was set up for 40 meters NVIS, I think the FT8 results with 1 watt speak for themselves. 15 meters was nowhere as good as 20 meters or 40 meters, but it was usable. At the bottom of the band, SWR came in about 2.15 to 1 at 21 megahertz, about 2.0 to 1 at 21.200, and 1.9 to 1 at the top of the band. At this point, I would be considering if 15 meters is important to my mission, I'd consider a lightweight dedicated dipole or off-center fed dipole, or an additional link to add to the end of the wire to bring the SWR down on 15 meters. Finally, out of the 4 bands we tested, 10 was probably the worst. My RigExpert Stick Pro said 10 meters was fair or usable, but I would say that's only true if we're using it with an antenna tuner. Now again, I have to remind you that the antenna is set up for 40 meters NVIS. So to be fair, we're already a quarter wavelength above ground on 10 meters. But if this band is important to you, I would say carry an additional link to lengthen the antenna somewhat so that the SWR in 10 meters comes down. Alternatively, live with it and use an antenna tuner. Ham radio operators always say get enough wire in the air, and I completely agree with that. In principle, this antenna gives us 80 meters, 40 meters, 20, 15, and 10 meters on a single wire. Ultimately, I think the operator who chooses this antenna is one who will dominate on NVIS communications on 80, 60, and 40 meters. 20 meters, 15 meters, and 10 meters are definitely bonus bands, but we'll have to remove that 40 or 80 meter link to get the best performance out of them. All right, let's go ahead and look at a Winlink session on 40 meters using NVIS. All right, guys, forgive me for the bad audio. I'm doing this portion of the video on my phone. Actually, I've connected now to a station about 18 clicks away. It's a Winlink gateway, and we've got an NVIS connection. Let's see if you can see the wire. So again, this is the 80 meter linked end-fed half-wave antenna, and it's almost in a horizontal configuration, a little bit sloping. I've got the carbon fiber mast a little lower than I normally would, just so I can make that 40-meter NVIS connection. So I've got the Lab599 TX-500 with the LiNK500MP MK2, Microsoft Surface, VADA HF, and it looks like we're doing a good job. So, my final thoughts about the N9 Sierra Alpha Bravo 80-meter linked NVIS half-wave antenna. By the way, the link is up on your screen. You can find it at eBay, and he ships worldwide. This antenna is an absolute monster. However, the linked elements makes it actually manageable. You only deploy the actual links for the bands that you need. Operating QRP portable with 1 watt and FT8 was an absolute pleasure. Using NVIS to connect to a station about 7.5 miles or 12 clicks out was also an absolute pleasure. With that said, I think this antenna presents the best of both worlds. Naturally, we have an NVIS capable antenna for 80 and 40 meters or 60 meters with a tuner. Moreover, if you want to work the higher bands during a SOTA summit or parks on the air, you deploy the 20-meter element that gives you 20, 15, and 10 meters. There's no need to fumble around with a longer antenna element than the band you actually need. I suspect at the end of the day, this antenna is going to be most appreciated by the operator who wants a lightweight antenna, offering the maximum amount of band coverage, is efficient on NVIS 80/60/40, while fitting in your pocket and not weighing you down. Even when I'm using some larger broadband antenna for rapid deployment, I always have an N9SAB antenna, an off-center fed dipole, or the linked NVIS half-wave in my pocket or in my gear. So guys, there's a book I've published, but I haven't promoted very much. It's called Radio Antenna Handbook for SHTF by OH8STN. I've taken a lot of time and effort to come up with pragmatic field notes, my own field notes, from many of the antennas you've seen on the channel, including this one from Tim. So please use the QR codes up on the screen for my books and Tim's antennas, and empower yourself with knowledge while doing so. And that's about it, guys. Look, if you like what I'm doing, if you like the content I'm creating, please let me know by leaving me a comment, a thumbs up, or buying one of my books. And if it's not too much to ask, please share this video with someone or someplace where other operators might find it. Rock and roll, guys. You are all absolutely awesome, but you knew that already. All right, guys, 7-3. Ciao.